Good evening. This is the City of South Haven City Council Budget Workshop for Monday, April the 20th, 2020. Good evening, everybody. I will call this meeting to order and we will get right to business. I will turn this over to Mr. Brian Doucette in our Finance Department to begin discussion of the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Mr. Doucette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is going to be a unique budget document. This document we, as your staff, started preparing in the winter, and the budget document was largely focused on accomplishing the City Council's fiscal year priorities. And we're going to be talking a lot tonight about high water, the impacts of the Black River and Lake Michigan. Now, the reality is that as we look outside, as we look across the state, as we look across the country, these are beyond challenging times. As we built this budget document, COVID-19 and the potential for a major economic, well, potentially a recession, was not something that was on our radar. And so I just want to stress to each and every one of you that the budget document is ready for your review, is ready for the city to consider and potentially adopt, but we will, without a doubt, be making amendments to it as we go through the upcoming fiscal year. As we have a better handle on how long the COVID-19 issue is going to haunt us, as we have a better understanding of what the economy is truly going to do, both locally, statewide, and nationally, we have no doubt that there are going to be changes. So with that said, we just want to stress that with the fluid situation at the state and the country, this budget document does our very best to address the council's priorities, but it's also one of these documents that we know we're going to be forced to change a couple of times in the next 12 months. For tonight, we have hard copies of the budget document in front of each of you. Rosemary is just next to me. She's going to be walking us through some of the assumptions built into that budget, and we will do our best to call off page numbers so that you can follow along. With that said, Rosemary, ready?
I'm ready. Ready as I'm going to be. All right, thank you. I guess I would like to remind you, as Brian said, the budget is a plan. We started this budget process back in January in getting requests from the different departments, and it was put together with the best information we had at that time. We met with all the departments. In those meetings, we made over $600,000 in reductions or cuts from what departments had requested. In addition to that, we added in just over $600,000 of dollars to address the city's priorities that you approved in March. So we are bringing to you a proposed budget with general fund revenues under expenditures of almost $500,000. And I'll go through some of those changes and reasons for that. So my intent is to just go through this overall, then we'll answer any questions, and then we can present some options to you at the end. I'm going to start out by looking at page number 3 of your budget document. I hope maybe with that you had a chance to go through some of this and maybe had questions, maybe didn't have questions, but I'm going to start with page number 3. This graph shows you the homestead of our millage rates that we have historically had. We are anticipating with some preliminary numbers that we ran a slight Headley reduction on millage from 15.1594 to just over 15 mils. We won't have our final numbers from the county until in May. They don't have to have it completed until the end of April, so we're still waiting those numbers. In pages 8 through 17 are 4 budget resolutions. Well, 3 budget resolutions. One is the millage. You will see those again in June when you adopt the final budget. Page 18 this is our current organizational chart for the city. Page 21 these 2 graphs are a summary of our revenue and expenditures by fund type. As you can see, enterprise funds are the largest revenue source. They are largely made up of our utility funds, the electric, water, sewer, our marina, Black River Park, and beach fund. General fund is our next largest fund at 18% for revenues. So the total of those 2 fund types make up 84% of the city's operation. Let's go to page 23. This shows you the breakdown of the different revenue by fund type or by type for the general fund. Property taxes make up almost 50% of the general fund's revenue. On page 24 shows the expenditures, and you'll see that our personnel costs are just over 43% of our total budget. Our next largest line item for general fund expenditures are contractual services. You will have a lot of services that perhaps the city did years ago, but now they've contracted it out, and so we don't have those personnel costs. All right, let's look at page 25. This is a summary of the general fund, both revenue and expenditures. So you can see our total revenue is decreasing by just over $500,000 from $9,187,000 to $8,532,000. We have property taxes are projected to go up at just over 4%. That's in line with our taxable value. The largest reason for the decrease, though, is state grants. We have no anticipated state grants for next year. The current year is for the splash pad. And operating transfers in is also decreasing because we had some matches for the splash pad in 1920. But expenditures, they decreased from $9,187,000 to $9,016,000. Two of the largest changes there are, if you look at contractual services, that is decreasing from $2,155,000 down to $1,005,000 because of the expenditures for the splash pad in the current year. That should be, we hope that gets completed yet by the end of June. But if you look a couple of lines up higher, we have payments to other units included in there, and we'll see that detail later on, is going from 617,000 to 1,139,000. We have included $500,000 in contingency to deal with high water levels, which is the board's #1 priority. So we had a reduction in one line category, but we had an increase in another. All right, let's turn to page 26. This is City Council's budget. In all of these departments, when I go through them, we have adjusted for any personnel costs, all information technology costs, and any changes in motor pool fees that are charged to departments where applicable. So I'm only going to talk about all of the major changes, and I'm not going page by page in every department. So, but first of all, City Council, we have included $10,000 in here for economic development, which is your priority #3, and we have included $10,000 for community vision statement. You want to develop a community vision statement. That is your priority #12. So we've included dollars to help address that also. I'd like to go down to page 31. All right, this is legal counsel. We have increased this line item for next year by $100,000 to work on revising the codification for City Council, and $10,000 to develop housing options. These are priority #8 and priority #2 for the City Council.
Rosemary, I'm just going to pause there for a second.
Yes.
The boost to the legal budget follows up on a discussion the council had about updating the code of ordinances. The code is essentially the rule book that establishes all of the rules within the city. Separate of this work, we are looking at codifying the zoning ordinance. And then lastly, the $10,000 we've budgeted relates to what we anticipate being a request for qualifications for the Overton site redevelopment. So this is kind of a big jump in the legal budget, but I just wanted the council to understand that it is a one-time expense dealing with some of these lingering issues that we've talked about in the past.
Okay, page 35. This is our building and grounds budget. What I wanted to point out here was that we have no capital outlay dollars budgeted for next year. They had originally requested $131,000 of requests, and that was something that we just needed to postpone, and we reduced that out of next year's budget. On page 37, this is our cable TV and broadcasting. This is one of the efforts that we hope helps address #10 of your priorities, which is to do communication improvements. On page 40, one of the things I forgot to mention at the beginning was, in addition to some of the reductions that we made in the budget as we went through preparing for next year, was also taking a look at our current year. So we are holding off on hiring summer help. We are holding off filling vacant positions. We're looking at employee benefits to see where we might get some savings from some adjustments there. We do have union contracts, so we have to make sure we comply with the union contracts. We were in, a couple of us, in a state webinar today talking about the state of affairs with regard to state revenues, and they said things are changing rapidly, if not daily. Sometimes I think they change within the day. And we're heading into an economic downturn. And it's going to last for a while. Even if they start opening things up, people are not going to change their routines back to where they were before this all started. Two of the things they said, you need to look at all of your revenue streams, you need to look at your expenditures and see where you can make reductions. And the city has been and is doing that. So,
Just to follow up on that statement, as part of the belt tightening, what you're going to see a lot of is, quite frankly, is less. As we move into the spring, summer, with less labor available, there will be less maintenance provided. We are going to do our best job to make sure that our parks and public spaces are maintained. But quite frankly, it's not going to be to the level that we've grown accustomed to over the last 5 years. The amount of mowing, the amount of flowers, the amount of just greenery will not be at the same level as it's been in the past. But it is just one more example of trying to control some of our costs as we move into the upcoming fiscal year.
one of the areas on page 40 is our information center. We are actually reviewing that to see if we can't do a reduction of hours of operation as a cost savings measure. It's currently open 24/7, and so we're looking at our comparables and seeing what our options are for the information center.
Again, this is one of those services that's great to have during the best of times. It's been a wonderful service. But looking very actively at call volume, we can see that there's definitely peaks and valleys. And as we move into the new fiscal year, one of the things that the council will be asked is, do you want to continue running it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day? Do we look to scale back to like the standard work week, or do we bring some type of modified schedule? But there's significant savings that can be had through this and several other cuts.
Page 41. This is the building code department. It handles all of your short-term rentals. We have dollars budgeted in here for next year to do some zoning work, to do an all-seasons redevelopment, to work on a development of the Hales property, and then we also have Shays inspections of our short-term rentals. The development of a couple of these properties deals with your priority number 3 for economic development.
I would just state to the council that the building department, at least on the site plan review side, is going to be driven by development pressure. And if there is a cooling of the local economy, the need for site plan reviews is likely to fall as a result. our contracted zoning administration, we would have fewer dollars going out. So the amount that we're spending on zoning review tracks with the amount of development that is being proposed for the city. I think it's fairly safe that we're going to have fewer site plan reviews in the upcoming year than we've had over the last couple of years.
Page 50. This is our Parks Department. You see a big decrease there, and that's to account for the completion of the splash pad. All right, I'm going to have you go back up to page 48. So this is taxes paid to other units. So we collect taxes for the senior services and the library, and we pay those out to those two units. But what's included in here is, you'll see that under expenditures, the bottom line is contingency. Here's where we included that $500,000 to address the priority one for the board for high water. Okay, page 56. So these are special revenue funds. Whenever we have certain revenues that can't be accounted for in the general fund, we have to set up a special revenue fund and account for those revenues and expenditures separately. So this is a list of those various funds. Page 57 is our Major Street Fund. This is where funding for the major street and the local street comes from Act 51 dollars. It was no surprise that the state said today we can expect a decrease this month and a little bit last month and probably next month. With people at home and no travel, there's going to be a reduction in revenues in that category. They don't know what the reductions are going to be yet, but that'll be one of the amendments that Brian talked about that we'll have to do.
Just to follow up on that, if you're not familiar with Act 51, it's essentially a gas tax. So everyone is paying at the pump. That's being collected by the state and then dispersed based on your lane miles. Each community, each county, each village, et cetera, have a designated amount of lane miles within their communities, and Act 51 is divvied up based on those lane miles. So it's a safe bet that that pot of money will be smaller as people are just not traveling as much, and the total sales volume is just going to be much lower as it relates to fuel tax.
The local streets is on page 59. All right, on page 61, this is our street improvement fund. We have a millage that generates the revenue for this fund that expires in December of 2027. Okay. Let's go to page 64. This is your budget stabilization fund. We have, for the last several years, transferred in $50,000 from the general fund into here. We are projecting our fund balance would be $461,000 at the end of next year. But this is a fund that can be tapped into in the case of an emergency. It's a lot of times referred to as a rainy day fund. Page 65. This is our narcotics fund, which is also funded through a city millage. This millage is set to expire in December of 2021. It started at least as far back as probably 2003, if not before.
1999.
1999, okay? So there will be more discussion coming to the board on this as we get closer to deciding on millage and ballot language to be approved before this expires.
Just
What is the revenue
note.
in that unit?
Pardon?
Where does the revenue come from in that unit?
Millage. It is, so it's almost all millage, although for this year and it started, we have an agreement with the Michigan State Police that they would reimburse us for any overtime wages that are worked by their office, the officer that we have assigned with them. But they're not
So that's the other
reimbursing.
12,000. So that's the other 12,000 in that unit?
Yes, yes, and that just started this year.
Thank you.
Yes.
Members of the council, just to follow up on this millage issue. Back in 1999, the original millage was laid out as a 3-year, and that was at 0.8095 mils. Since then, there's just been a number of rollbacks of the millage, so we're looking at 0.6728 is the current rate. So we will do some follow-up with the council. We'll bring in Chief Thompson to have a discussion of how those dollars are being spent. But the biggest issue is it's a relatively old millage. There's been a series of rollbacks, and so as we look at the renewal of the millage, I think it's a safe bet to say that uncapping it would make some sense. And just so you're all familiar, the way that the narcotics fund works is we have 2 dedicated police officers. One is pushed out to Michigan State Police, who's working in a regional task force, and the other is pushed more locally to the Van Buren County Sheriff's Department. And those 2 officers then work with those 2 respective agencies on essentially regional drug enforcement, but there's always the emphasis on keeping a close eye on the South Haven area.
Page 67. This is a fund that we tapped into in the current year. There were funds left over from a grant, and we got approval from the state that we could use these dollars to make neighborhood improvements in low to moderate income housing communities. So in the current year, we used this money to buy play equipment for Elkenberg Park. So we have nothing budgeted for next year, but page 68. This is a river maintenance fund. These funds are set aside to assist with dredging in the river. We actually had dredging done last year. That was free of charge to the city. So we jumped on that offer to do some dredging at no cost to us. This is a place that you could use these dollars to address some high water issues if we need to. On page 70, this is a list of all of our current debt service funds. So we get revenues in from various sources, either general fund, DDA funds, water, electric, to pay off bond issues. We have one new fund this year, that is Fund 372, and that is for the Center Street project. We have two loans that are being paid for out of here. One is a loan that we got from Sturgis Bank. The other one is for an SRF loan from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. We had a 75% forgiveness on that particular loan, so that was nice. One of the other loans that we got from the Drinking Water Revolving Fund, $1.2 million, that is being funded from Shasta. They are going to pay for that. So that actually is accounted for in the water and sewer funds and not this one. Revenues will equal expenditures in all of these, so it is not my intent to go through any of these debt service funds. Page 79. This is the list of our capital project funds. The first one is just for general capital projects that the city has. Fund 465 is a new fund this year. That was to account for the Center Street project. And the other two, the Pavilion and Ice Rink and Cemetery Improvement Fund, those have been around, and no major changes on either one of those. We actually have no capital projects budgeted for next year. Page 85. This is a list of the various enterprise funds of the city. We have Black River Park, the Beach Fund, the 3 utility funds, electric, water, and sewer, and then our Marina Fund. If we look at page 86, this is our Black River Park. We just recently completed the fish cleaning station and the skid pier project, but we have no capital projects budgeted for next year. Page 87 is our beach maintenance fund. So we have budgeted our revenues to be about the same as they have been in the current year and prior year. Even though we have reduced beach area, we're hoping that our parking will still be available and full. But that's assuming the quarantine will be lifted so people can come out and enjoy the beach. Here is also another area that you could tap into some funds to address some high water issues. Page 88 This is the electric fund. Beginning in June, the city is going to start purchasing electric in the open market through its membership with the Michigan Public Power Association. We have budgeted in here for next year the installation of the automatic meter readings and software. That would be the $2 million that you see under the 2021 proposed budget under capital outlay. Page 91. This is the water fund. So SHASA is near the completion of a rate study, and that will help that board set the utility rates for both water and sewer. And for the water fund, that'll help us accommodate the state requirements for the lead service replacement. If you look on page 95, that's the sewer fund. Again, we're having the rate study done that will assist on this, but what's included in here is under capital outlay again, $1 million to raise the pipe at the wastewater treatment plant, and that's due to the high water levels, which is your priority one. So we have different monies budgeted in various places, or we have funds that we can tap into. Marina Fund is on page 99. So I'm hopeful and maybe optimistic that our revenues for next year are going to come back to the levels that they have been in prior years. You can see we've budgeted half of that for the current year, and that may be a little high with the closure of Northside Marina, and you're going to be hearing more about the Northside Marina. We're working on a plan to get that reopened. We have no additional capital projects budgeted for next year other than what we're going to be looking at for the Northside Marina.
Members of council, later tonight, Kate will be offering a more in-depth discussion of the North Marina repair project and what we're hoping to accomplish in the coming months to get that place back online.
Page 100. This lists the city's 3 internal service funds. They operate similar to enterprise funds, which enterprise funds and internal service funds operate more like a business, where they record their own assets and have depreciation. Page 104. We have one fiduciary fund, a cemetery perpetual care fund. We get revenues when burial plots are bought or sold. And we are only able to spend the interest earnings in this fund to help upkeep those flip-flop. The principle has to stay intact. Page 106. We have several component units. Downtown Development Authority, 3 local development financing authorities, and a brownfield redevelopment authority. Their whole purpose is they capture tax dollars and make improvements into the areas where taxes are captured for redevelopment. The most active one is the Downtown Development Authority, and their long-term focus right now is to finish up Center Street. And then we can sit down and have a planning session on what projects they want to take on next. So if you look on page 107, we're projecting they will have a fund balance of, let's see, almost $700,000 by the end of next year. All right, let's see. I am completed with my presentation.
So I'm going to ask Bill Hunter to come forward. And while he's doing that, I'll ask Phil Poole to toss control of the screen to me. Okay. So members of the council, you should be seeing a map. It's the 2019-2021 Road Capital Improvements Project. And our goal is just to have Bill walk you through everything from roads to parks and open spaces to water, sewer, electric. All of the files that are being presented are included in tonight's agenda packet. You can just click the link to pull up the file. All right, Bill.
Thank you, Brian. As Brian just stated, we're just going to go through the maps here of the capital improvement plan. Right now, the road project, as already as you're looking right now, we have to adjust this. And that's actually based on, we did some bids for Kalamazoo from Erie to Clinton to do some resurfacing. Well, bids came in and they're about 35% higher. We have asphalt prices coming in, hot mix prices coming in for what the price we paid typically years ago for cold mix price. That being actually, we usually get about $70, $75 a ton. Now we're seeing 110. That being said, I expect actually it's going to maintain this way for some time, so the bid's coming in. Plans are flexible, meaning actually we're only going to do what we can budget. So what you see in a capital improvement plan, where it doesn't mean that's all we're going to do. It's a plan and it's flexible. The local roads, we got Michigan, Prospect to Harbor, Prospect, Michigan to Huron, Van Buren Street, and then Willow. Those are some of the local roads, major roads. We have Phoenix. There's no left turns on Phoenix. Those are things too we could hold off. They're just something that would be nice to have some of the input we've received actually from citizens. But Superior, we're looking at Indiana to Maple and Hubbard. That's a big one as well. And we actually do have Phoenix, actually, we have 73rd to 71st, and we're having that's actually with some urban funds. So we have some urban funds coming in. I believe that's 200 grand for that. So we are offsetting some of our local dollars actually with federal funds. City Council have any questions on some of the streets we went over?
Bill, can I ask you a quick question on these bids?
Yes,
I
yes.
read an article in the Wall Street Journal that says a lot of cities and states that are having problems financially because of the beginning of this recession are sending out proposals for bids again, all over again, and some of the bids are coming in lower because companies want to do business and they want to do it quickly. And it's kind of, to use the expression, it's a buyer's market. Is it possible we could send some of these out? Because you said Kalamazoo came in 35% higher than years ago. Is it possible to send the bids out again and see if they'll come in lower?
That's actually our plan. We plan on just bumping that over and rebidding that and using the same, so the work we already did, everything we did to put the bid package together, all we're basically doing is changing some dates and reissuing it out. So that is our plan. And you are right, that's what we have to do. I mean, Kalamazoo, just because it came in higher doesn't mean it's not a priority. It just means we just didn't have the funds. So plan is to move it to this coming fiscal year and readjusting the budget again, working within the constraints of the money that we're asking City Council for and just changing the descriptions. But you are right. You're right, Joe. That's what we have to do. So we're going to be doing that, and there. Unfortunately, with this market that we have, we don't have a lot of contractors really that are out in this market. I mean, I actually heard GMB call this like something about the Devil's Triangle or something, how this affected and how our market is with contractors. So, but I think a lot of the contractors right now are either they don't know what's happening or what's going to happen with prices, so they're a little reserved. They might be reserved actually with their employees and what they have to do to maintain social distancing, or the petroleum market in itself. Yes, it is going down right now. You see gas prices, but it's still getting everybody in there to actually make the product. So, and the aggregate too. It's not just oil in there. You have your aggregate is the big part. So now that's more expensive. So it's a lot of different variables. People look at the oil prices and go, well, it should be cheaper because oil is so much lower, but it's everything else that goes into making asphalt that brings it up. So, yeah. But that's a very good point, Joe. And that's what we plan on doing is rebidding these out.
Members of Council, I'm just going to stress that what Bill is seeing right now is just absolute definition of uncertainty in the market. When you could buy gas for less than $1 a gallon, it should indicate very cheap asphalt pricing. And to see our bids coming in, what I would describe as sky high, was a bit of a surprise. But within days of receiving those bids, we had our Center Street contractor pulling their people off of the job site just due to health concerns. So we're seeing it both locally and through our bids that there's just a lot of uncertainty right now in the market. Mr. Mayor, members of council, any questions on paving?
Hey, Bill, Scott here. Any other thoughts given the high water? Any change in priorities on any of these streets with changes in high water?
No, nothing right now as you see right here. No.
Didn't think so. Just making sure. Thank you.
If there's no other questions on streets, we'll move to the plans for water. Okay, members of council, you should have a map up that shows fiscal year 2020 through 2027, and this is the water distribution projects. My goal is just to have Bill summarize what's being planned for the drinking water system so that all of the elected officials are familiar with the upcoming projects.
First, with the distribution system, we have a big looming number we have there is the lead service replacement. That's changes to the Safe Water Drinking Act when it comes to the lead and copper rule. This is the first year where we have to budget for this, and then it's actually the calendar year or January of 2021 we have to report to DEQ and something annually about how many services we've actually replaced in the coming year. The way the rule reads is that you have to average 5 per year. So you could put off not doing any lead services, but then the next year you're trying to catch up. And to me, I think it would almost be best to do a little bit more than 5% to get a jump on it, because there's going to be other communities that are going to be lagging behind. And I think when you lag behind, in my opinion, you're going to pay more in the long run. Another thing budgeted is the altitude valve for the Blueberry tank. Currently, there is an altitude valve there, and we're investigating to see if it can be rebuilt at a cheaper option than this. If it can't, this would be the cost of like $100,000 for that. It's one of the first steps to doing of eliminating and putting a new tank actually at the DPW building, and then finally getting rid of the concrete standpipe. But as Rosemary stated earlier, we have a company actually that's looking at doing a full cost analysis of our fees and our rates for the water and sewer. These, like I said, plans are flexible, meaning let's see what these things come in at. Let's see what these rates suggested. We might have to, based on the plan, and this is just a guess, you might have to push things further back. So right now, that's what we're planning. This is actually the cheapest part of the plan, but it could be we're pushing that $100,000 back, just depending on what the rate study comes in at. The one thing we can't is that lead service replacement. That's actually a part of the law. So that's one thing we're stuck with.
I was just going to say, and just was noted in the news this morning that today marks the 4-year anniversary of the switchover to the, I guess, contaminated drinking source in the city of Flint. So the lead service replacement laws are a reaction to what occurred in Flint, and it is the law. We are not in a position to negotiate on this one. We have to proceed with the replacements.
At the water plant, we're calling for actually new computers and supporting software. When the plant was constructed, we still have the original computers there and software, and this is an upgrade to them. Water plants are notorious for computers not lasting as long. If any of you have been inside the conference room there, take a good look at the furniture in there. You'll see actually the furniture is oxidizing. And that's just all the chlorine suspended in the air. You can smell it. It actually precipitates and starts rotting even that metal. Imagine what it's doing to a computer. So, and the software updates, we were told actually we should have done them a few years ago, so we're a little bit behind on that one. But that's where that $100,000 is actually going towards. That's the only thing we're proposing there, and we pushed a lot of things out. So,
Members of Council, just to follow up on this map, one of the major items that you're looking at is the construction of a new 1 million gallon elevated storage tank to be built adjacent to the existing Department of Public Works. That's about a $2.7 million outlay of cash. Something that we're doing right now is with the recent passage of the economic stimulus package by the federal government, there are now hundreds of millions of dollars being pushed out into the form of block grants being made available to state and local units of government. So over the last couple of weeks, your staff has been brainstorming and then starting the preparation of a pre-grant application. And we'll be asking the Economic Development Administration, the EDA, that's a federal agency, to consider a partial grant to help fund this elevated storage tank. And our logic is we're looking for critical infrastructure, something that's well established in our capital improvement plan, something that is quote unquote a big ticket item, and something that ties directly to regional prosperity. And we think this project, more than anything else on our to-do list, is checking all the boxes that should interest the EDA. So we will be bringing that full grant application to the council at a future date for formalization and submittal.
the entire of the 7-year water distribution plan, if you look at it, the total, that whole plan is based on what Brian just said, that elevated tank. That's the whole 7-year plan, minus actually the lead service. So you're looking at $6.35 million, which actually what we're just talking right now could be higher now.
Yeah.
Could add another 30% to that based on how the prices come in.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, any questions on the water distribution system?
Brian, I just like to, little FYI, I just want to thank the city and Bill and all the staff for the job they're doing, giving us clean water. We no longer can take that as a granted. And we see it around the country, all the water problems in the inner cities. Part of the problem with the coronavirus is lack of clean running water. And so more than ever, I just want to say I am grateful, and we'll never fight trying to keep our water clean and available. So thanks.
No problem. Mr. Mayor, any concerns?
On water, no, that makes perfectly good sense.
Okay, I'm gonna just pause for a second to make sure there's no questions from council. Okay, we're gonna move to the next topic, which will be sanitary sewer.
Sanitary sewer, this is a big one right here at the wastewater treatment plant. Currently, we're inundated with groundwater, and specifically when it comes actually to the operation of the plant. The wastewater treatment plant acts as all as a gravity system. So you have the main headworks building, which we just finished almost going on 2 years now. The sewage goes there and actually pumps up, and everything is gravity through the whole wastewater plant. What's affecting us now is our effluent. That's actually the discharge from the wastewater plant from the wastewater plant, which is clean water, to the Black River. Black River now is so high, it's actually causing a back pressure to the wastewater plant, which is affecting our capacity. We already, just earlier, maybe a month ago, we purchased 2 portable pumps that will help us in the meantime keep it where our capacity is. Well, we're not at capacity, and we can, well, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. So we're not impeding our capacity, meaning actually we're able to pump bypass the effluent and actually get it out to the river, and it's not going to affect our capacity. We have done that already. There's other things. You'll see the $1 million in there. That's actually for berm work, and we're already, we received some HESCO barricades from the Army Corps of Engineers, and we're planning on putting those up. We're really hopeful that we can not use that $1 million and put the HESCO barricades up, keep the 2 pumps, maybe do some slight modifications here, but cut that down substantially. But we had to budget, meaning it was the only thing to do for the high water. We had to put some numbers in there and prepare, because the last thing, nobody sees that everybody drives by the wastewater plant. I know Steve drives by it all the time, but a lot of people don't see that. They see everything coming off the coastlines. That's what they can see. They just don't realize that how the high water is affecting the wastewater treatment plant. So we needed that. I'm not sure yet how much we're going to be able to knock it down, but I'm quite confident we can do a pretty good dent on it. Another thing at the is the collection system. We're only proposing actually 2 projects for the collection system. It's actually at the lift station at the golf course and the Kalamazoo lift station. Both of these lift stations are at capacity. The golf course is inundated with actually I&I. That's infiltration coming in. We have to actually do upgrades there, and the Kalamazoo lift station is at capacity in itself too. We're hoping with some pump improvements there, we can get that by for another couple of years. And it's a pretty simple. Does the council have any questions at the wastewater plant or the sewer collection system?
I'm good.
Brian, this is George, or I'm sorry, Bill, this is George. The
Yep.
Monroe Park lift station, what's the time frame for that one?
Do you mean the Kalamazoo or?
Bill, he's referring to this one.
No, it's if you go down the bubbles, it's like the third bubble down.
It's the one right next to the North Marina.
Oh, is that the roof repair? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's $4,500 for the roof.
Yeah, that's just a roof repair there. I'd have to go back there and take a look at it. That was just, we're gonna just replace the roof on the top of there, George.
Okay,
Just getting water inside there.
I'm good.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, just want to pause and hit on something Bill mentioned. So the Army Corps of Engineers about a week and a half ago delivered a significant amount of HESCO barriers. This is a brand HESCO. It's equipment that has been loaned out to us by the Army Corps. Bill and his team will be working with the Army Corps to get on-site setup and installation guidance. And then over the coming weeks, our team will be building these barriers around the wastewater treatment plants on portions of the South Beach to protect the water filtration plants. Now, these barriers are highly effective, but not the most attractive things that you're going to see. So as we look at the current year budget, the budget proposal in front of you tonight, we've inserted very conservative estimates on doing things without any assistance from the Army Corps. The use of HESCOs is a good way to knock down our total spending for very low cost. But again, it's going to be one of these live within your means moments, and the council may get some complaints about the aesthetics that are tied to the use of HESCOs. What you won't get are complaints about significant rate hikes as we looked at berms, as we looked at concrete barriers, as we looked at more permanent, more attractive solutions.
Hey, Brian, what are the thoughts on, I mean, obviously these are going to go up. This is a great solution, and I'm glad staff did the work to get us to this point. How much lead time do we think we'll have on, obviously assessing effectiveness and deciding if we have to pivot and go to a more permanent solution?
Oh, that's a good question. These HESCOs, what I was anticipating, remember originally we were proposing actually the Tiger Dam at the South Beach. That was the one that, and we're still going to put that one in over by Allen Avery because we purchased the one, but second option, we were going to do it at the South Beach. That was also a temporary one. Now, this one, of course, the HESCOs are cheaper, but a permanent, I was actually hoping that these would just stay up until the water levels went down. That's what I was hoping.
I'm in agreement with Bill. To the council, I've just pulled up a quick image search of what a HESCO product looks like. And again, it's not the prettiest thing, but you can see these are just quick images pulled up from flooded areas. I think I'm looking at Davenport, Iowa, right there on your screen. And it's a barrier that then is filled with sand. And this should do a good job of trying to keep some of that water out from getting into the wastewater treatment plants.
The idea is you lay actually some plastic out, some 6 mil. We had to buy some rolls, like 14 rolls, so we have about 1,400 feet of 6 mil, so 10 by 100, and you lay that out, and you have someone with a backhoe try to level as much as they can, lay the plastic out, put the HESCO. The plastic will be on the water side, put the HESCO barriers down, they unfold, you fill them full of sand, and you wrap the plastic over it. So the water will hit and create a barrier, and what's supposed to happen is you'll see actually sand will start collecting on that water side, hopefully, the whole idea of it. But the thing about it is once you put them up, they're not really, they're temporary, meaning to take them down, you have to destroy them. They're not let's just dig it out. And it was different with the Tiger dams, is you can inflate those and then deflate them. So there was some luxury where you could pull them in and out and still reuse them. The HESCOs are just not that way. Once they're installed, you want to keep them up for the duration of the high water. But they're a
That
lot
makes
cheaper.
sense.
I think they're at least a quarter of the price,
I think so.
if not less.
So again, members of council, as we've prepared this budget document, we've made what I would describe as very conservative thoughts. We essentially have zero revenue coming from the state of Michigan or from the federal government to help offset any of the flooding costs. What this team in front of you has worked on is we've got 5 projects that have been submitted to the Army Corps for consideration, and they are going to be projects that long-term will provide a lot of benefit, but they aren't going to be quick. We've submitted projects for the wastewater, for water filtration, for the South Beach, the North Beach, and then also for some of the flooding along streets. Best case scenario is probably about 1.5 years before we would have any funding in place from the federal government. And then a similar outlook with the state of Michigan. Just prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, the Michigan legislature had created a $5 million pot to be made available to combat flooding. The governor's budget called for $40 million to be made available to combat flooding. And that was literally just days prior to the state of emergency being declared to combat the public health issues. Will any of those dollars still be available from the state? Quite frankly, it's to be determined. Okay, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we'll move on to non-road items.
Okay. Well, we had to push, believe it or not, we had a lot more things on here prior to. We had a big wish list, a lot of things we wanted to do, but then they came, we had to cut some things out. Parks, actually, we have that Bear Park, we have a fence install on there for about $36,000. That's due to the agreement we have with the Central Loss, and we got to put that barrier in. We also have on there the South Beach Tiger Dam installation, which goes back to what we were just discussing with the Army Corps and the HESCO barricades, is knocking that down would probably be a quarter of that cost, putting those up. We only have a small amount in for the museum. We're doing some painting on the outside. We're actually hoping to get a lot of that painting done this year. It's only really on the back side of the newer portion of Liberty Hyde Bailey Museum. And we also have the door we have to replace that we already have it. We just have to get it painted and then put it in. We're hoping actually to not touch that money. What else do we have? DPW, City Hall, we pushed stuff back. We have sidewalk project actually on Phoenix Street from 73rd to Veterans, and that's actually CMAQ money we're receiving for that. So that one's going to go in conjunction with the other Phoenix project that we just talked about earlier. That's going to just be a walkway from 73rd to Veterans. We've been trying to get that for a number of years, and plan is to still proceed with that one.
Members of council, the intent is to try and create true walkability all the way out to the college campus. We've been engaged in some preliminary discussions with leadership from the college, and as we bid this project, the Phoenix Street walk from 73rd to Veterans, we'll have a bid alternate to go around the corner down Veterans and connect to the college, at which point I'll continue negotiating with the college to see if they're willing to provide funding for that additional sidewalk work.
We reduced the scope of that project. Originally, we called for sidewalk on both sides. We actually cut it down to sidewalk just on the one side. but that could still connect to this, and I think it would be, like Brian said, it'll improve the walkability of that whole area. City Council have any
This is
questions?
George.
Yes, George?
So I had a question on this one because if you look at page 80 of the budget document, this graphic is on page 81, and on page 80, it basically says that there's no capital budgeted for fiscal years 2021. And so I was surprised that there is this graphic that shows a bunch of capital projects.
You know, it could be because it's in contracted services,
Yeah.
which is not capital item.
George, were you able to hear that?
No, that was Rosemary. I couldn't hear you, Rosemary.
Yeah, okay, it could be because, in the budget, and I would have to go back, is that, it's budgeted in, contracted services. And so we didn't pick it up as a capital light, item. And we would, fix that in a budget amendment.
Okay, so it's elsewhere in the budget somewhere.
That's correct,
So
sir.
where do we have it?
Are there any other questions from the council? Okay. Hearing none, I'll move to the next slide. So this is going to be a fiscal year 2021 utility capital improvements. And put simply, this is electric work.
I have a better answer, George.
Oh, yeah. George, we're going to follow up on your prior question.
So that falls under LDFA 3, and we have that money budgeted over in one of the we have it budgeted in fund LDFA 3. So we're trying to utilize those dollars.
All right, LDFA 3, got it.
Yes.
Thanks. Good job.
Yes, the electric projects. Last year, we did have the AMI project slated to be completed this year, but as we all can see what's happening right now, that just didn't happen. The COVID-19 occurred, and can't start a project where people can't get into people's houses, so we pushed everything back 1 year. The AMI project it's still something that will benefit the city. It'll set us up in the future for the possibility of time of day rates. That's what we want. Improved customer service, and just there's other benefits to the system as well. There's other things you can do. For example, with the system you can do something simple like control the streetlights in a certain neighborhood. If you got a certain neighborhood that wants them dimmer, you can actually do that. And there's other things that they keep adding onto the system. I've been trying to get a couple of the vendors that we pre-qualified to see if any of them have like a parking system that we could utilize, but haven't had any luck with that yet. A lot of cities are going with this right now. Just recently, Holland is gone with it, plus actually Grand Haven, and we're looking at actually the same vendor that they're using, so to keep it with continuity. Plus, we have in this 7-year plan, we have a new substation. That's a big one that's proposed in here. That actually came from a study that was done through GRP, did a study on our system, and it calls for the new substation. That's the big ticket item. We can see it as $3.27 million. That's actually to help the distribution of our electrical system, and it'll set us up better for the future. We also are, not included in this plan, we are still looking at alternative feeds due to the big outages we had earlier this year. So we're still investigating that. Most of the other improvements are, there's another core city we're looking at, which would be just to the north, Core City Phase 5. That would be the last core city. That will improve all of our, we'll actually almost rebuild all of our secondary electrical lines in the neighborhoods. We've seen actually a great benefit, actually just doing the cores that we've done. We started them in 2013, and we have seen actually our outages drop quite a bit actually doing these improvements.
Hey, Bill, we've got just $350,000 budgeted in the 12th Avenue, the substation. Is that just initial design work with the substation to come later?
Yes, that's actually for the 12th Avenue, actually leading lines to the substation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, upgraded the lines to it.
So members of council, just to make clear, what we're trying to look at is that 12th Avenue substation. That would be our third substation. The intent is to once again just try to bolster the strength of the overall system so that as we have multiple points of connection into our system, if we lose one feed, to be able to then balance the load with the other substations. That's our goal, to try and improve overall reliability and to avoid extended power outages. We've had a couple of extended power outages over the last 6 months, and put simply, it's an issue with our supplier. Those outages did not occur within the city of South Haven. We were just the last point on that transmission. Bill and I are keenly aware of that, and we're doing everything possible to avoid any sustained outages for the future. Mr. Mayor, members of council, any questions?
Brian, one question. Where does broadband come in on the budget? I may have missed it.
So at this time, as we roll out the AMI system, that would be the opportunity to try and build a backbone to bolster broadband. The good news is within the city proper, there is a pretty strong broadband backbone in place. Where we find large gaps in broadband availability is as you push out into the rural parts of our electric system. Specifically, if you drive along M43 heading east of town, there's large areas that have little connectivity. The same is true as you get out into Geneva Township and beyond.
Hey, Brian and Bill, just wanted to clarify too, when we had the last substantial outage, we had talked about at least one alternative feed project that had a slated completion date of this spring. Was that one done?
Yeah, that's actually what they're completing right now and they're working on. That's one of the reasons why our outages are occurring, because they have temporary radial feeds hanging, not hanging as in, well, they are hung, but that's one of the reasons why. And that should be completed this spring. We've been exchanging emails with AEP about scheduling some times when they're going to do some switchovers. So, but still, that being said, we only have one feed. Our only supplier is AEP. So even if we have 2 feeds, and we have 2 feeds in the city, if we ever lose our supplier or their generation system somewhere in their system, we don't have anything. So we are opening up a discussion with another generator of another provider. We just don't know what that dollar figure is going to be. It may be too expensive. We don't know, but we'd like to still open up those talks and see what they can provide to us.
Very good, thank you.
Any other council questions? Members of council, I'm just going to pull up a quick summary so that everyone can just see the dollar figures associated with the capital improvement plan. And I'm going to ask Rosemary to come back and talk with you about just how big these numbers are.
All right, so Bill just went through his capital improvement plan and what's budgeted, and it's like a 7-year plan. And when I put this summary together, I guess I was a little surprised at how much we have budgeted for capital outlay every year. And going forward, I mean, you've got a lot of future needs, but for the next few years out, I mean, the city is spending, it takes a lot of money to keep your capital up and running. So that's a good thing.
So members of council, without a doubt, this budget is going to be lean. There's going to be less occurring in this upcoming fiscal year than some of the public and, quite frankly, some of us are used to. But as you look at this summary document, you can see that if we continue working this plan, we will see close to $69 million of public investment over the coming years.
Yeah. I guess I would just open it up now for any questions.
I would just like to say that maybe for future, maybe a 1 or 2 page document kind of summarizing all the cuts from the different departments, and they don't have to be real specific, but for example, maybe the police department can just have a number in there showing what they cut for what we saved on the 4th of July fireworks. Not necessarily label it from the fireworks, but just maybe just a sheet for us to have in our toolbox to show citizens that we have cut and different departments have cut. Maybe just a summary of all the tightening that the city's doing to try and get through these unprecedented times and unanswered times.
We can do that. Thank you.
Hey, Brian, I'll jump in. Just to point out, I think another good point, page 74, the public works facilities paid off in 2022, if my eyeballs read that correctly, which is good. Again, everyone knows the legal went up. I had that as a comment. Thanks for commenting on that. We know that will go up and down based on needs, and I'm glad we're getting that zoning review addressed. The other one, just something to be thinking about. Years back, we set aside money for the budget stabilization fund, and I would argue that probably maybe for next year's discussion, we should either look at bolstering that or creating. I would actually argue we should probably create a high water reserve fund so that the council always kind of has that as a line item to be looking at, because the water is going to go back down in a couple of years and then they'll forget. I mean, I'm going to admit, when I came to this town, I really didn't know it cycled like it does. And I think we've all learned a lot in the last few years. But if we created something so that all future councils would always be looking at this and, maybe create reference documents on what's happened so that they're always putting money aside for this so that when it happens again, there's money there. And maybe it's separate from that budget stabilization fund, but I think it's relevant enough, and we've seen the impacts with this current council, that we should probably be putting some money aside so future councils are prepared.
George here, I just had a question. This kind of relates to what Joe was saying. When we were going over our priorities, I thought we had something related, and this came from the economic development study, on our high-speed internet, broadband, and I thought there was some efforts maybe with Bloomingdale telephone, BTI or something like that, to try to improve that that speed of the internet. And I understand what you were saying, Brian, earlier about the city is maybe okay, but the further you get outside of town, it doesn't get as good. But I thought there was something we were looking at doing in the near term in that area.
Okay. So the city has been meeting with Department of Agriculture, and the USDA does have between 0 and extremely low interest loans available for rural electric systems. We've been looking at the potential for financing the 12th Ave substation as well as the smart meter rollout. One of the things that Department of Ag has noted is that if we wish to include essentially conduit and fiber along some of the areas that are barren, that is an expense that they would allow us to build into our project. The city staff has met a number of times with Bloomingdale Telephone, and I think there is genuine interest in bolstering their services over here. But as we've worked through some of our economic development study recommendations, what we found is we just don't have a lot of gaps within the city proper. And so we don't have an immediate project built into this budget to do anything with rural broadband aside from as we roll out the smart grid system at that time, trying to fill in some of the blanks along M140 and CR 388.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brian, this is Joe.
Yes, sir.
Can you give me a very high look at the city, looking down? Tell me the good and the bad financially this year that you see. Because
Sure.
I've read a couple of these pages, particularly page 1, and I just don't have a sense of, I know we're going to get hit with a downturn in the city with the economy. I know the high water is going to affect us. I don't know where we stand on the money that we have coming in versus the money going out. Are we in good shape or not? I mean, I'd like to have a broad statement where you think we are. Are we going to be able to get through this year? You hear about states going to, like the New York governor comes on and says, we are in horrible financial shape. Now, we're just a little town and we're not hit with that virus, but we're hit with high water. So a general statement, are we going to be okay this year? Are we going to have to make some major changes? And I know it's hard, you don't have a crystal ball, but I just looked at page 1 and it says the general fund budget includes $500,000 in contingency. Then I see the water treatment flooding in the cost estimate of $1 million. Then I go over to page, and I may not understand all this, the revenue by type, and I'm looking at the biggest income we have is the utilities, the enterprise funds. Then I look what we spend on that, and our profit on that is 0.9%. So as a businessman, I don't know where we stand, good or bad financially, the outlook of this year. So I'm just trying to get a general statement from you.
Yep. So the way I would describe this budget, the way that we're proposing it to you, is we are being extremely cautious. The city will not feel the effects of any major economic downturn for about a year to a year and a half. The municipal financial world essentially feels it slower, but we also then feel the recovery slower than the general economy. So as we go into this year, the irony is we are seeing what is a global pandemic. We are seeing what appears to be the potential for a global recession. And in our budget document, we're seeing increases in property taxes. Now, what we are trying to do today is bring you a budget that recognizes what's going on globally so that a year from now, we aren't playing a huge amount of catch-up. Our plan 2 months ago was to ask this council to consider an increase in revenue and that is essentially city manager speak for increasing taxes. We recognized all of the challenges we were seeing associated with the high water in the Black River and Lake Michigan. And the initial plan was to ask this council to consider a bump in total revenue, which would have meant all of our neighbors paying a little bit more to live here year-round. But as we've watched over the last 2 months, what we're seeing is a large number of people living here that are truly struggling. And we think that number is going to get higher and higher as the potential economic downturn affects more and more families. So what we are proposing today is a budget that essentially seeks to draw down savings to pay for a variety of projects. Now, as we draw down those savings, we're taking steps to limit our total expenses. We will follow up on Steve's request to summarize all of the cuts that we've made, both in capital projects as well as in operations. And then we will also seek to summarize some of the big ticket items that are in this budget, flood control related, that we will be attempting to minimize total cost to the public through the use of those partnerships with the Army Corps of Engineers. So Joe, to answer your question, we're healthy today. I'm not concerned about today. I'm concerned about 18 months from today. And so that's why we are seeking to tighten the belt right now so that we are ready in 12 to 18 months. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Can I ask one other small question, Brian? This
Yeah,
may
fire
be
away.
getting into details, but somewhere in there when we were talking, going over the budget, there was a talk of spending an extra 100,000 on legal fees to make sure we're up to code and everything. Would that be an item that we could push back a year to see how we're doing this year? I understand it's important to be on the right side of all the codes and all the legalities, but we've been doing it for years, and it just seems like a year not to spend that kind of money on more legal fees.
I anticipated this question, and quite frankly, the answer is yes. Is it something that I want to see delayed? Absolutely not. But should the council come back and say you want to do half of the codification work, that's completely understandable. If the council wishes to delay some of the items that have been laid out in the budget from visioning to codification to, I can't think of the others right now. But if the council wished to say, let's put a hold on that type of project, that is well within your rights, and we would have no objection. Any other questions from the council members?
Brian, overall, no. I would just say thank you very much for the preparation. Rosemary and Brian, both thank you again for connecting the budget documents to priorities. That is always helpful and appreciated.
To follow up on that statement, Michelle is sitting behind us. I have to yell at Michelle every day to be quiet.
Oh, hey, Michelle, sorry you're on a super small screen. I didn't see you back there. Thank you, Michelle, too.
So Michelle and Rosemary, I'll give all the credit to these ladies. They absolutely bust their tails to get this budget document together for the council. So kudos to them. Thanks.
Yep, well done. Always appreciated.
Okay, so members of council, we've got some follow-up items that I know we need to work on, some clarifications in our spending, and also just some simple 1 to 2 pagers describing the cuts that we're making to control our spending. I'll work with staff to get that pushed out to council, but this is a truly unique time where the council, to follow the state's rules, you're meeting remotely. Should the council desire to meet again next week to go over this budget document more, we can do that. At this point, our recommendation is to bring forward the budget document in its current format and accept that we will have a series of amendments over the next 12 months. If that's okay with the council, that's how we would proceed.
I think that would be fine with me,
Plan.
with all the amendments that we know we're gonna have.
Okay. I guess let me go down the list. Jeff, would that give you any heartburn?
No heartburn. Let's proceed.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, does that give you any heartburn?
No, that plan is perfectly clear, makes good sense. I think you've been very fiscally prudent, good work by the team, so let's proceed.
Thanks. Mr. Reeser, does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Sleeper, does that make sense to you?
It does, Brian. I don't think we need to meet next week.
Okay. I heard from Steve earlier. Chris, Mr. Campbell, does that make sense to
Yeah.
you?
It does. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed some of that. We did get it unlocked.
Good. And Mrs. Wilkins, do you have any heartburn about proceeding as we've discussed?
No, I don't have a heartburn about it.
Okay. Well, to the council, I'm going to compliment you all. In just 2 meetings, you're getting pretty good at doing these web-based meetings. Well done. All right. So, Mr. Mayor, my advice for tonight is we've got about 20 minutes before the council meeting. I've asked our presenters to join at 6:45 just to get ready for the 7 p.m. council meeting. If the council's okay, I would ask that you just take about a 10-minute recess and just come back to get ready for the regular meeting. Does that sound okay to you, sir?
That sounds perfect. So we've been through all the items and let's just adjourn and come back in about 10 minutes.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. See you in 10. Good evening, everyone. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the South Haven City Council for Monday, April the 20th, 2020. This is being done remotely via teleconference. I will call this meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call.
Jeff Arnold? Jeff Arnold?
Here.
Chris Campbell?
Here.
Joe Reeser?
Here.
Steve Schlott?
Here.
George Sleeper?
Here.
Letitia Wilkins?
Here.
Scott Smith?
Here. And just as a reminder, when we do the two items, the agenda and the consent, if you'll just identify yourself when you make the motion and the second for ease of record keeping. So first we have the approval of the agenda. Just need a motion and a second.
I make a motion to approve the agenda. Jeff Arnold.
George Sleeper,
Second,
second.
Steve Schlott.
All right. Thanks all. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Travis, roll call, please.
Arnold?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Reeser?
Yes.
Schlott?
Yes.
Sleeper?
Yes.
Wilkins?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes. That takes us to the consent agenda items A through C.
It's George Sleeper. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through C.
Chris Campbell, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call. Travis?
Campbell?
Yes.
Reeser?
Yes.
Schlott?
Yes.
Sleeper?
Yes.
Wilkins?
Yes.
Arnold?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes. It takes us to the next item. City Council will be asked to receive an update from Mr. Ryan Kilpatrick of Housing Next on the status of the housing redevelopment of the property at 229 Elkenberg Street. And I see Ryan is with us. Thank you for joining the call. Always a pleasure to have you with us, and I'm looking forward to hearing your update. So I will turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me with you this evening. So what I'd like to do is talk briefly through kind of the points in my memo to you all, and then give you some opportunity for discussion or clarification or questions to me. So to begin, you all have seen the conceptual site plan that we put together. As you remember, last fall, Housing Next was contracted to put together a conceptual site plan that matched the market demand, the housing need, and the site conditions that we were aware of at the time. We hired Integrated Architecture to put together the architectural renderings and the site concept. We provided the market data. And what you have is a site plan that illustrates about 110 units in a variety of forms. So we have 4 different unit types ranging from larger 3-bed, 2-bath townhouses, all the way down to more traditional multifamily units, concentrated on the Overton site in a way that still prioritizes community connections and pedestrian walkability. Now, there's nothing necessarily magic about that number of units. If you wanted to reduce the number of units, that's entirely fine. You could increase potentially. The value of having slightly more units per acre is that there is a certain amount of infrastructure necessary to serve the site. And the greater the number of units that can share the cost of that infrastructure, the less the end developer needs to charge on a per unit basis to the homeowner or the tenant living on site. So keep those things in mind as you want to negotiate up or down in terms of the number of units on the property. But to give you an overview in line with our memo, there are basically 4 types of units there. We've given you some basic price points to think about in terms of the cost of construction there. Those prices will change depending on the type of developer that you seek, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit developer, and the market segment that they're choosing to target. And so you have the luxury now of being able to issue a request for proposals from developers from across the South Haven region or lower Southwest Michigan or all of the state. And you can target the type of developer that you would really like to see do this project. And we're happy to help you identify those developers and find language that can attract those developers to this project. But keep in mind that every developer has a niche product that they typically prefer to produce. It's something that they've done multiple times before. It's typically a product that's been successful for them. They know how to build it. They've got designs ready to go. And they've got typically a construction firm that they've worked with in the past that they're easily able to communicate with. So whether you choose to prioritize townhouses or stacked flats or multifamily, or to prioritize all 3 of those, what you want to keep in mind is there are certain developers who are good at that one type of product, and then there are developers who are good at another type. Not every developer likes to do all types of housing. So I tell you all of this with the recognition that we have created a site plan that meets our traditional advocacy points of housing at all price points, mixed income, and a variety of product types. And I say that with a caveat that when you pursue all of those at once, it's a more complicated development. And so what you want to do is one of 2 things. Is either target a developer that feels comfortable with all of those product types and has some experience doing all 3, or target individual developers to do each product type separately. So you could parcel out the site and seek out a townhouse developer or seek out a multifamily developer. So the other thing that you want to keep in mind is developers typically try to target a particular market segment. So some developers are really great at serving baby boomers who have an income of between $80,000 and $130,000. Other developers are great at serving a middle-class workforce product with an income between $50,000 and $100,000. And then you've got developers that are excellent at serving incomes at below $50,000 that are young professionals or working families. So we want to think about those categories as well. And to the extent that you want an intergenerational community or you want to serve a particular segment of the workforce, keep those markers in mind as you press forward. So the last thing that I want to talk through is your priorities in terms of timing. The greater variety of product type that you'd like to see on the project, anticipate that it'll take a little bit more time to coordinate the number of developers necessary to get you those product types, or to hammer through a development agreement that you all feel comfortable executing with your developer if they're going to do all of that product type. Now, the other thing is your level of affordability. There are some developers that are going to be very comfortable doing an affordable low-income housing tax credit project or a subsidized project. There are others that can hit a workforce target using some more traditional economic development tools. And there are others who can build the product that we've designed with no incentives required, and it's going to be a more kind of upper middle class target. All 3 of those income bands are possible to hit on this site. It depends on how much time you want to spend working through the details of the pro forma, the incentives necessary, and all of the myriad issues that come along with those project types. So one of the things that I wanted to talk through with you all this evening is your preference in terms of how quickly you want to get the site developed, and then balance that with your preferences for your target market. If you want to hit a low-income workforce project, a middle-income workforce project, a more tiered project that has a variety of income scales, and then we can help you to craft an RFP that targets your top priorities. So in the memo that I sent out, you should have in front of you a couple of different questions to think through. And the first one is whether or not you prefer to have those multiple building types that we've illustrated, or if there's one or two of those building types that we've illustrated that you would prefer to see across the majority of the site. And your answer to that will help us define whether or not we need to seek out one developer that has competence in all of those product types, or one developer that's good at just the product type that you want to prioritize. The second question that I'd like you to think about is, what are the city's goals for affordability? As I said, we can help you target a developer that is very skilled in low-income housing tax credit development, or a developer that's skilled in workforce, middle-class, middle-income housing. And we need to have a better sense of where the council's priorities are for this particular site. And whatever your priorities are for this site, it doesn't mean that that's what your priorities are for the entire city, but we want you to think through how quickly do you want this site to go, and what do you want to see as an end result on the property. And then lastly, question 3 is really about the kinds of tools that you're willing to make available to a developer. In order to get the more affordable band of incomes served on the site, we'll want to pursue some federal tools. And those federal tools come with some both state requirements and local requirements. We want to be sure that you're ready to enter into a payment in lieu of tax agreement or something of that nature to go along with those federal tools. The more middle income price band can be served with a brownfield tax agreement finance agreement, or it can be served with another type of tax abatement that only needs to be approved at the local level. But in order to hit those price points, we've got to find some balance of give and take in terms of what the tax obligation is for the developer in order to make sure that we can hit the right price points. And if you're interested in the future, we can help you think through both the developer's pro forma so that you're not over-incenting the deal, as well as the income bands that you really want to hit so that we can be sure that we're offering the right tools for the kind of product that you want to achieve. So with that, what I'd like to do is give you some time to give me some feedback so that we can help your staff and the rest of the team think through what are the basic components of the RFP if that's going to be issued.
That sounds great. I'm trying to decide the best way to get everyone's feedback. I don't know if we just want to go down the aisle and sort of hear from everybody, and I will chime in last if that sounds fair to the group.
Mr. Mayor, this is Brian. I would encourage you to go one by one, just call off each member of council and give them an opportunity to speak without any distraction.
I would agree. How about, why don't we just go ahead and, I'm staring at first, Mr. Reeser. Why don't we start with you, and then we'll work our way across the screen.
Okay. First, I really like different types of units in the development. Mr. Kilpatrick, I looked at your suggestions and I really like them. Having 2 different size of townhouses, having stacked homes, and having multifamily, which I assume are apartments. That accomplishes a lot of things. The top side, it's 189,000, and we go all the way down to 90,000, which I think is a great price point to get young couples in there and seniors who want to trade down in their housing. It fits a lot. So I really like having 4 different types of housing, including apartments, because the study the city did said there's going to be 2 extremes in our community: young professionals coming out of school, and then the seniors looking for places to live, and we don't have either one. Secondly, I agree with you, more units the better. If we could hit 110 or anything close, it'll get the prices down. As far as a developer or more developers, if we could find one good developer to do it all, they don't trip over each other. We're not trying to work through all the idiosyncrasies and all the oddities of each developer. You go to one developer, you have one contact point, and I think it's cleaner. And if they could have the whole thing, if we find a good developer, they can get the cost down, because the more they sell, they can make less on each one. At least that's the way I look at it as a businessman. I think one of the things the community told us, if I recall right, and one of the things I believe in, it should be affordable, and we know what your definition is, and I like it. It should be intergenerational. We should have young people, middle-aged, and seniors in there. We should have mixed race and mixed income. And I think those 4 examples you gave can do it. So I like it. I think one of the giant things we have to talk about and make sure we do as a town, in my opinion, is make sure we take advantage of all the federal tools that are out there that you talked about. PUDs, and then the other thing, I don't know what you called it, but I remember George asking the question at the first meeting, and that is when you said there's ways of developing this community that people, when they sell the house a year or 2 later, they can only sell it at the rate of inflation. So you can't have somebody moving in buying a $90,000 home and a year or 2 later selling it for $150,000, or worse yet, the $189,000 home getting $300,000. Then we just negated everything we tried to do. And a PUD will keep short-term rentals out. So did I hit all the points you wanted feedback on?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
thanks. I won't take any more time. Thanks.
you.
All right, how about George Sleeper?
Well, Joe kind of hit a lot of what I was going to talk about. So I'm also inclined to go with a variety of housing types and not just one type. As far as the affordability goes, I think with the variety, you're going to get a variety of affordability. I think whatever kind of housing you bring in, it's going to affect the market citywide. So I think filling the niche, which is the middle of the housing market, I think will have an impact on the other aspects of the housing market throughout the city. So I think we need to fill wherever the biggest gap is as far as affordability goes, and the market will help the other areas as well. And as far as tools go, we should use whatever tools we have available to us. And I think as a city, staff has been very good about offering multitude of tools that can help developers. And I think, whatever we can bring to bear, I think it will just be beneficial later on. As far as timing goes, I would feel better about doing something and making sure we do it right, and not necessarily trying to get something done quickly, because this is going to be around for a long time. So I want to make sure we do it right. Those are my thoughts anyway. Ryan, did that help at all?
Yes, that's great. Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Steve Schlock.
My suggestions would maybe be, due to the current economic situation and the unknowns, possibly look at doing it in different phases. I like the thought of starting with workforce, or possibly the lower income, the 90,000 price point. I think that seems pretty awesome. That could be a great market to start out with phase 1, and possibly look at phase 2 and 3, or at least try and work it in phases so that we're not starting something that isn't going to get finished, or people are going to not bid on properly during unknown times. I'm sure if you send an RFP out for today, nobody knows what prices are going to be, lumber, etc. We don't know what our economy is going to be in 6 months. So I think as far as putting an RFP out right away, I don't think it'd probably be very fruitful at this point. But maybe you, Ryan, as the designer, if you will, can possibly look at breaking it into phases, so that maybe it's not too big of a bite for any one developer to chew at one time. So that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. How about Chris Campbell?
I agree with Joe and George. The only thing I would say would be, would be that maybe 2 developers or more might be better, in case we do have problems with one developer having trouble down the road This is a lot to deal with. We've had trouble in the past with some developers not being able to complete projects and stuff like that. So I feel like that might be a lot to just throw out there. And if something goes wrong, well, we're kind of in a little bit of a stuck situation, maybe. Something to look at. And also vetting these developers pretty well to see other projects. That's all.
Very good. How about Ms. Letitia Wilkins?
Hi there. I pretty much agree with what everyone else have said. I agree with what Steve was saying about the mixture of units, starting with phases, and I think that the bulk should go to the missing middle, because that's what we're missing here in South Haven, housing for the the working class here. I do agree. I heard what Chris was saying about more than one developer, but it just seems like maybe if you have one developer, maybe it might be better because maybe you can get it done cheaper, or maybe you can get more units or whatever. Maybe they would be more apt to work with us. And that's basically all I have to say about the units.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Mr. Jeff Arnold.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for all your hard work on this. It's going to be a broken record here. We have such smart council people. I agree with that. What's been said. Your three questions were, what kind of tools? Well, typically when we ask that tools question, I would lean on the city staff and what their expertise are. But I know we've got a really sharp city staff, and if we give them hoops to jump through, they'll be able to do it. So I would say we go for every tool we possibly can. If the federal dollars have a lot of strings attached, I know our city staff can handle it. The target market, Joe and George said it. I like the mixed variety, and like Steve said, I like to focus on those 90,000 because I think that's a big market that we need. I also thought that your third question was how fast. Well, I'd love to have it yesterday, but like George said, we don't want to go fast and not have quality. So as fast as we safely can and still having a quality product. And then my biggest concern, and Steve touched on it, was, with what the economy is going to do, we don't know what the economy is going to do. So I sure like Steve's plan about, can we break it into phases, if that's a good way to handle the changes and challenges that are coming our way. So those are my thoughts.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, I'll bring up the rear. You guys have hit on pretty much everything. I guess I'll just kind of summarize some of the things I've heard. One, I just want to start with, I would like to see this on an agenda sooner rather than later, because I feel like this has been a priority for several years. Workforce would be my top priority by far, but obviously we want to hit those mixed incomes. We talked intergenerational. It's nice to see a mix of housing types, Ryan, as you mentioned. Yes, we want the multiple building types. I think I would defer to you as you're looking at the market. I know the market's uncertain right now. It could bear fruit. It could be positive, and it could work in our favor because folks may not be looking to develop. A municipality is relatively secure, so we might look attractive at a time of uncertainty. So it might be a good time to do a project. So I think I would rely on you and Kurt to guide us on the issue of how much and when, as well as the issue of the actual, vetting of the, the contractors we're looking at. Tools available, again, I think it was just said very well just a second ago. I mean, every tool available that we could make this affordable, we should be looking at doing. So as was stated, we've got great city staff. They're real good with your tools, their tools. I think we can bring this in at a good price point because we really do want that mix, but the emphasis needs to be on workforce. We just do not have workforce housing. As I was just looking today, I was trying to figure out what we've built. Dockside is the last place that we built. 1994, it's been 16 years. They have 24 units. And just to compare, see, I'll date myself here. When I moved to town, we had, remember Lake Crest Apartments? Anybody remember that building? Got any old timers here? There were, if our math was right, 84 units there. And those are gone now. Those were turned into condos. So we we had 84, we picked up 24. That's kind of tells you where we're at. We just don't have workforce housing. So if we're gonna bring people to town and get them to stay in town, this is where it starts. So I'm gonna argue we should push this ahead as best we can, given the economy, and just as quickly as Ryan feels like he can get something put together. I would argue we should take the steps necessary to get the project moving and get this developed so we can get moving. So that's my thoughts. Ryan, do we answer your questions?
Yes, very well. I appreciate everybody's feedback. I think Steve started the conversation about where the economy is today. It's still a little too soon to tell what the long-term economic impacts are going to be on the construction market. A lot of developers now are saying they're close to 2 months behind schedule on existing projects. Financing is going to be the big issue. There is the potential that this economic crisis, coupled with some of the other issues that have been percolating nationally for the last couple of years, may actually relieve a logjam relative to federal funding when it comes to housing and affordability and the programs that are available. I can't say with any certainty yet that that's the case, but there is a significantly greater amount of conversation about the importance of housing to the local economy. And so we'll be keeping a very close eye on what tools become available over the next few weeks and months. But in the meantime, I think what you've given me tonight gives me plenty of ammunition to put together an RFP along with Brian and Nick, and then get that on your agenda as soon as possible for review and discussion.
I think that sounds great. I do just want to let we have the public is able to tune in, and I wanted to give everybody a time to call in. So as council is finishing up any questions, or Ryan, any other questions, we'll give a minute or so for the public to call in. And Brian, what number are we calling again?
Mr. Mayor, that'll be 637-0777. Once again, 637-0777.
Thank you.
Members of council, if you can just hang out for a second, we're going to see if we have any phone calls coming in.
And Ryan, while we're waiting, have you done a project like this and you've had to work with multiple developers? Does that create additional headaches, or is that right in your wheelhouse, something you can handle easily?
Yeah, I think typically the easiest way to do that when you've got multiple developers is to divide the site internally around the infrastructure. And then phase it appropriately so that, as somebody mentioned earlier, they're not stepping on each other's toes. It's important to let your initial developer get their foundations in, do their site work, and be on their way with vertical construction before you've got somebody else in on the site doing their foundation work. The other big deal is your infrastructure, utilities, and trades is just being able to coordinate those. I think there were several council members that alluded to the fact that you get some economies of scale by having one developer do everything. That's absolutely true. So I think based on the feedback that I've gotten so far, I think our priority is going to be towards finding a master developer, one person that essentially can general contract the entire job with the variety of product points. And that master developer will want to give them the option of either building all of that product and overseeing it directly, or bringing in a junior developer or a JV developer who might specialize in one of those product types that the master developer hasn't done in the past. But the master developer is still in charge, and that's the primary point of contact. And the legal obligation is with that master developer to the city.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Can I ask a quick question, Mr. Kilpatrick?
Mr. Reeser, can you hold for just 1 second? We have a member of the public calling in.
And just as a reminder to the public, you'll have up to 5 minutes for your comments.
Caller,
Okay.
you're on with council?
Yes, hello. Do I wait till Mr. Kilpatrick's done?
Oh, is
Nope,
this Gail?
you're okay, right? Just
Oh.
state when you finished your comments.
Oh, hey,
Oh,
Travis,
I see.
we've got Gail Patterson
this
in
is-
there. Hey, Gail, do me a favor. This is
Yeah.
actually, right now we're talking about housing. We'll actually have comments for items not on the agenda coming up in just a few minutes.
Okay, this is about the housing.
Oh, perfect. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to say I am just so pleased to see that the city is trying to go ahead with the Overton property and developing the housing. And I like the idea, the mixed variety, the starting point at one section at the $90,000 mark. And I'd like to see a comparison between what it would cost for multiple developers versus one developer. And that's my comment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. I'll call back later for your other comments because I know you're calling me back. Any other phone calls out there?
Caller, you are on with the council. Please state your name, and then when you have finished with your comment, just state that you're finished.
Yeah, my name's Brian Sheehy. And I'm wondering, are any of these units for rent or are they all for sale? And then how is it just going to be that people from like out of state just don't buy them? And I'll hang up and listen.
Mr. Mayor, are you okay if I respond to that directly?
Yep, Brian, I was going to let you answer directly. That's perfect.
Okay. I think that what we'd like to do in terms of the for rent versus for sale is do a mix of both. We haven't yet talked about how we want to prioritize the amount of owner occupied versus rental product on the site. Typically, what we would recommend is you want to try to get at least 65% of the site owner occupied, with roughly 25 to 35% rental product if you do a mix of both. The value of getting rental product on the site is you're able to get a lower price point. And what we're hoping to do is have some owner occupied product that is also income restricted. And having rental product on site gives members of the community a way to move into the site maybe before they're ready to purchase something, but live in the neighborhood while they're saving for a down payment or while they're repairing their credit so that eventually they can move into a home ownership product. So our goal is going to be to do both. And as for restricting the sale to folks who are out of state, I think there are two ways to answer that question. The first is I would recommend that as we draft a development agreement, once we've found a developer, part of that agreement requires that a majority or all of the units must be owner occupied as a principal residence. And so for the most part, that'll take care of somebody buying these as a second home because they'll be taxed at the much higher rate if they claim this as a principal residence or if they don't claim it as a principal residence. The other side to that question, and I'm not sure if this is what you were getting at, but if we're providing affordability on this site, are we attracting residents from outside of the state to come move here because the units are affordable? And the response to that is typically when you create new affordable housing in a market that doesn't have enough supply, you start with a waiting list. And that waiting list will likely be managed by the Housing Authority. And the Housing Authority already has a waiting list, as I understand it. And they're able to prioritize local residents. So what we would want to do is use that process of the Housing Authority to prioritize their waiting list and utilize those standards in a way that we can ensure that we've got members of the local community and the local workforce that we're attempting to serve with this project, while still making sure that we're complying with all of the fair housing laws that apply to this project.
Very well stated. Thank you. Any other phone calls out there?
Mr. Mayor, we don't have any further calls at this time.
Okay, very good. Ryan, any other summary statements from you, or you have marching orders?
Yeah, I think I have good clarity from all of you. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate your feedback. I'll get to work on drafting an RFP with lots of input and guidance from both Brian and Nick.
Okay, that's perfect. Again, thanks for taking the time to join us tonight. Very helpful as always. I look forward to seeing this site developed. Which will take us now, we've got, the next item will be an update from Ms. Kate Hosier, the Assistant City Manager and Harbor Master, on the status of the city's North Municipal Marina and the planned repairs.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, my memo is in the packet, and as you know, the North Marina has been closed for the season due to our electric shore power system being compromised by the high water and windstorm surge that we had over the fall and winter months. We did have the marina tested, and we saw still lethal levels of electric current in the water, prompting the closure. So we've been working with Edgewater Resources that we hired to evaluate our system to see what the needs were for us to at least minimally open with the increased, with the upgraded electric system, and of course building up the docks to get above our current water levels. So we're looking at a repair that could be from $1.5 to $1.7 million. And this repair would be all new electrical that we would piggyback on the existing infrastructure. So no new pilings would have to be driven into the ground. We're looking at abandoning the existing electrical and utility lines and then going right on top of the existing decking. This would be, because we would be doing a new system, we would have to have new electric pedestals, new electrical panels, new lines. And then we would protect those lines with like C-channels on both sides of the walkway and then build new decking above. So that would be over the entirety of the horseshoe basin as well as out to the island that's in the middle. We will not be addressing in this phase, as you can tell from the map in the packet, Zone A, which is the what's so-called surge docks that go from slip 88 down to slip 97. And we would not be, this phase would be really focused on bringing up to 88 levels, because we would be adding decking up to, I think, 12 or 13 inches. We would have to rework all the access points in the marina to be compliant with ADA. So that kind of gets us to about $1.5 to $1.7 million for this upgrade. We'll be bringing you more information at your May 18th City Council meeting, where we will be going over what we have applied to the state. We are looking to see if there's any emergency grant dollars for this immediate repair.
Very good. Thanks, Kate. Is there anything, I guess, any council questions at this time? I got a nod from our voting expert, Mr. Schlock, so we must be good. So, all right, Kate, anything else for us? If not, we will move on.
No, I don't think so. We'll bring you back more information at your May 18th meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for all you're doing. I know there's a lot of work down there right now, so thank you for all your work. And we have Mr. Schooley with us. Oh, he's right there. Kevin Schooley, good evening. So next we're going to get an update from Mr. Kevin Schooley, our outstanding South Haven Public School Superintendent, on the impacts to education and the ongoing efforts to provide services to the South Haven students with the recent COVID outbreak. So good evening, Mr. Schooley.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I mean, you have two people there that are intimately aware of how impactful this is to our school system and specifically to our kids and to our staff who are now separated. I can tell you, in my 30 years as an educator, this has probably been one of the most difficult 3-week stretches, 4-week stretches, as we try to wrap our head around this. So on March 12th, shortly after 11 p.m., we learned that we would be sent home for a period of time. And we had kind of seen the writing on the wall, like with what was happening on the West Coast. So we'd worked with principals, with teachers, that in the event there was a closure, we were prepared to send home devices with our kids. So on March 13th, credit to our tech department and our teaching staff, there was a device sent home with each one of our kids that day. Kindergarten through second graders were iPads, and then everybody else was a Chromebook. And we thought at least we can increase the likelihood that we can connect with kids and families in another means. So we did that. Right after that, we went into our priorities shifted to critical needs of kids and families. So food, that's what we immediately planned for right after the closure. I've witnessed a lot of good things with our food service department. They're rock stars, as well as community members, teachers, support staff coming in and helping fill bags. You know, we have a 106-page emergency operation plan, and not one mention of a worldwide pandemic. So we were doing the best we can, and I think we're doing okay. From March 17th to last Friday, April 17th, we've served 40,500 breakfasts and 41,583 lunches. So just shy of 82,000 meals, or just 82,000 meals to the kids and families here in South Haven. So we're very proud of that. Next came the concept of connection and then connectivity. Connection being trying to provide care for our kids' social emotional needs, in this feeling of loss. They lost a lot. The kids that I talk to, I mean, they get the why. They're not questioning that. But there is a loss, and we do have kids with social emotional needs that we need to care for. We also tried to provide a connection to maintain those relationships that are so important with teachers and kids, and provide enrichment learning experiences, both virtual and hard copy. Some of you may have seen the read-alongs that teachers are doing, or trying to put messaging out to kids that we are thinking about you. Those are all really, really I think important at a time when there's way more questions than there was answers. So to keep that going with our kids is important. And then the connectivity part, I mean, it's no secret. There's a digital divide. I think we've made an impact, but we continue to work with families and actually internet providers. They've been really good to work with. So we have been able to tackle some of that digital divide that way. Then came Executive Order 2020-35, which essentially eliminated face-to-face instruction for the remainder of the school year. So we had to, and that was early April, we had to transition. We had to think, how do we continue to have kids learn from a distance? That's what task we have. We first looked at, okay, what can we do now? What do we have in place now that we know can work? After that, we began, there's barriers. There's barriers to everything. We looked at barriers as opportunities to get over. And we, on a case-by-case basis, kid-by-kid basis, we try to remove those barriers. We've received guidance from the governor's office, from the Michigan Department of Ed, from our school attorney to our intermediate school district here in Van Buren County, in helping to build a continuity of education plan. Thankfully, ours was approved last week, so we are able to move forward and continue to work with kids and families. The big consistent message from all those guidance entities was, this is a plan based on a kid's situation. This has to be done with extreme grace and maximum flexibility. So that's what we're trying to do now. I've had teachers in the last 2 weeks in Google Hangout meetings. They're brainstorming, they're talking about how they can best do this, whether it's an online version through a Google Classroom. Some of the teachers are using Seesaw accounts, telephones, FaceTime, essentially doing whatever we can to preserve the learning experiences for our kids. So those teachers are working hard as well. Support staff are helping with food service. They're putting learning packets together. Our drivers are delivering meals, and we'll soon be delivering educational materials and things like art supplies. I mean, some of us take for granted, like, yeah, you've got colored pencils. Well, everybody don't have that. We want to make sure that all of our kids have what they need to continue to work and to learn and stay connected with their teachers. So, you know, as a couple of you are probably more intimately aware, I mean, we do miss them. We miss our kids, we miss our staff. We get the why, but right now we're working to educate kids at a distance, and that's our task. The seniors in high school, it's a tough one. But I can tell you that we're going to do everything within our power to preserve some of those hallmark moments that they deserve. So that's just a quick update for you. I appreciate you giving me a couple minutes. I don't want to hijack your council meeting.
No, this is perfect. This is about as relevant as it gets right now, Kevin. I'll say you've done an amazing job. To your point, there's no playbook for this, so it's pretty remarkable what you've done, what your staff is doing. I'd just say thank you, and I do look forward to creating some more opportunities for those seniors. It'd be fun to do something as a community to recognize them and wrap our arms around them and send them off to their destinations.
Yes, absolutely, Mayor. I appreciate the city's support. Mr. Desatt has been fantastic. Chief Thompson, you've got a fantastic staff.
We appreciate it. Any other council comments for our extraordinary superintendent?
I would like to say something. I would like to say thank you to Mr. Schooley for being such an outstanding leader. And I say that because there's other school districts who are really struggling. And because you were thinking further ahead than they were, we were already ready. When they called the shut-in, we were already prepared. So I just want to thank you for your great leadership.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkins.
Kevin, first, thank you. As Letitia said, the kids are so important to our community. As a substitute teacher, I have struggled as a person that I can't help all these sick people in hospitals like New York. There's nothing I can do. I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor. But in the schools, being a substitute teacher, I just want to throw this out. Is there anything I and other substitutes could do to help the kids? I am more than willing to do it at no cost to the school. I'm willing to volunteer. I can't volunteer in a hospital, but I can volunteer teaching kids. So if you don't have to answer now, but if there's anything you can think of for myself and some other subs that could help, or help people like Letitia with her students, or some students that are falling behind, could I do tutoring remotely or something? Again, I don't want to be paid. I want to help our school. So just think about it, because I told Brian, I'm looking for ways to help our community. And maybe that's an idea for you to think about. And thank you again for everything you did, especially all the meals. It's amazing. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Reister. No, I won't say no to anything right now. I mean, we're essentially, we're coming into, the final approach, and figured out we had to build landing gear. So we're going to, I think that's a good idea. And even moving forward with any type of learning loss, to utilize that army of people as well. Good suggestion.
All right, anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, just got to tease Mr. Schooley about a situation I came home to a couple of nights ago. I've got 3 kids, and once again, the middle child seems to be adapting quite well. I came home, and he is laying on the couch. He is in a Google Hangout that's streaming on a tablet. He's playing Nintendo online with the kids from the Google Hangout. He then also has a walkie-talkie talking with our neighbor's son. He had, I think, a total of like 6 kids that he was chatting with all at one time. And I just marveled at this 8-year-old's ability to connect with people. And then we turned everything off because it was way too loud.
You got yourself a multitasker.
Yes, we do.
Oh, very good, very
Yeah,
good.
there's been a lot of good stories with kids and teachers and how they're connecting and it's I'm proud of the staff. I really, really am, and how deeply and they care for our kids. So they're doing all right.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you again for all you're doing, your staff's doing. Pass along those kudos from all of us, and we will be in touch soon and just continue to work together and get through this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night. Thanks, Kevin. All right. That was very refreshing to hear. Next, we're at the point in the meeting where citizens in the audience can be heard on items not on the agenda. So I know Gail tried to call earlier, and she called me earlier and said she was going to call in on something else. That's why I thought she was calling at the wrong time. So if you want to give a call in, you'll have up to 5 minutes to present or ask questions on items not on the agenda. And we'll give everybody a minute and let folks call in.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
This is Jeff Arnold talking. Mr. Schooley was talking about how the teachers are working so hard to preserve the learning experiences. And he also touched on the what he called the hallmark moments. Last week, Mrs. Wilkins and I we had to call, all the teachers called all of their students and touch base with them. And when I talked to the seniors, they were thrilled that Mr. Schooley and Mr. Williamson have not abandoned graduation or the dream walk, all of those fun things for seniors. And the reason I bring it up is it's kind of one of those situations where we're not sure how we're going to accomplish those. And so, like Joe said, he's willing to help. And I'm just kind of putting it out there because we're open for ideas. If we can't all come together, how could we celebrate those seniors and that accomplishment of completing high school? One of the suggestions was, well, we could have the seniors in the 4th of July parade. That's great, as long as we're having a 4th of July parade. So I'm just bringing it up so anyone listening and all of you guys here on council and city staff, if you've got ideas, I'm sure the school would love to hear how we can celebrate seniors and 8th grade commencement and kindergarten graduation and all those kinds of those hallmark moments, as Mr. Schooley called them.
Well, I agree. It's a great idea. I've talked to Mr. Schooley a few times, and I've talked to a few others about a couple different ideas for our seniors, including a parade. I think we can give them their own parade. We won't wait till the 4th. We'll give them their own. We can have some fun with this. So I think once we figure out what the governor is going to do here in the next few weeks, we'll get some guidance, and then we'll make it special for our seniors. I agree, and I will sign up. I have a senior at my house, so I'm looking forward to making sure they all have fun. Hey, do we have any phone calls?
We do. Caller, you're on with the council. Please state your name, and then when you finish with your comment, please state that you're done.
Oh, okay. Gail Patterson Gladney, Van Buren County Commissioner, District 1. And I am just calling in to share some news from the county. I do want to first say I'm very proud of our community and listening to all the comments tonight at City Council. I think we have a great caring community, and I'm proud of our first responders, fire and rescue, police, City Council, and continuing to work and the staff work for for goals that we have set as a city in the past, and also the school. So we have a lot going for us. I'd like to mention that I had sent an email out to the mayor and to the city about the news from the county. The Van Buren County Emergency Operations Center has been operating for several weeks. Lieutenant Bob Kirk and Todd Skinner have been disseminating information and gathering equipment and supplies needed for our first responders, hospitals, and emergency personnel in our locales. There are going to be frequent virtual meetings for commissioners and supervisors, and the next one is going to be Wednesday, April 22nd at 2 p.m. So if your mayor or any of the council people or city manager want to call in to attend that meeting, appropriate methods and information for joining the discussion will be sent to you. I also just want to mention from a news release that the MDHHS, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, announces a peer-run warm line to aid persons with mental health needs during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the warm line will operate 7 days a week from 10 in the morning to 2 in the morning. That phone number is 888-733-7753. And it's run by peers who have had mental illness in the past, and they have been trained to help others to get through difficult times. So more information has been sent out to the city staff on that also. And I'm finishing my comments, and thank you for all that you do. Goodbye.
Thank you, Gail, for calling in. I appreciate it. And thanks for calling back also. All right, any other calls that you're aware of out there?
Mr. Mayor, there's no additional calls at this time.
All righty, very good. That takes us to city manager comments. Mr. Doucette.
Members of the council, thank you for spending the last couple of hours, last 3 hours with us, getting through the budget document and then to the regular meeting. Much appreciated.
All right. Councilperson comments. Let's reverse it from the last time I called on everybody. Let's start with Mr. Jeff Arnold.
I have no comments this evening.
Very good. Miss Letitia Wilkins.
Mr. Arnold stole my saying. I have no comment.
All right, we're sharing it. Mr. Chris Campbell.
No comment.
Mr. Schlock.
No comment.
Oh, you guys were tough tonight. Mr. George Sleeper.
So I just wanted to thank again Michelle and Rosemary and everyone that helped put together the budget document. It was a very good document. You could tell there was a lot of hard work put into it, and I thoroughly enjoyed going through every page, looking at numbers. That's it.
There you go. Good man. All right, Mr. Reeser.
My only comment is really to our own commissioners and our mayor. I was really impressed by everyone's comments, and it's clear to me that we're all on the same page and we're all trying to do what's best for the community and create housing that our community needs. And I am just proud of all of you that we're all on the same page, and we'll have differences how to do it, but I think we're going to do what's best for the community. And it's wonderful. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. All right, I'll just quickly recap. Thanks. Yeah, again, Michelle, Rosemary, everybody for the budget documents. Always exciting to read numbers. I would ditto the comments of Mr. Sleeper. Mr. Kilpatrick and Mr. Schooley, excellent presentations, and I agree with Joe. I think we're pretty well aligned on the housing. We know what we need. It's been an issue for a long time, and we just need to start. So I think there are some that are concerned that we're not doing enough, but we have to start somewhere. And I think this is the beginning of what's going to be a great initiative relative to housing. Just want to again recognize our community. There's a lot of folks making sacrifices. There are people that are off work, reduced hours. It's stressful, and we're really doing our best. You've seen some movement as far as us, stopping shutoffs. You're seeing resources out there. So I just encourage people to, again, keep checking on your neighbors, keep taking care of people, just be good to one another. Just again, recognize those frontline folks, our hospital staff, EMS, police, fire, and quite frankly, the folks at the grocery stores and the gas station, those other folks that have to go into work every day that are on the front lines. So we just appreciate that. And just Kevin mentioned 82,000 meals. That's remarkable. And any time, but right now that's remarkable. I'll just say that. Our city staff, we're still open. The essential services are happening. The water's flowing, the lights are on. So thanks to staff, thanks to Brian for keeping everything moving. You're seeing some essential construction projects are continuing, which is great. I don't know, Brian, if you'd mentioned about the Visitors Bureau put out some coloring sheets, which are kind of cool. If you go to the Visitor Bureau website, they're out there. They did send some of those out with the meals this week. So it was kind of neat that they sent out those coloring pages. So if you're needing to do some coloring, they're out on the Visitors Bureau website, kind of fun. Just great, again, to see all the cooperation with the city, the county. You're seeing the foundations come together. Again, the Visitors Bureau coming together. We've got the We Care May Day event right on May 1st. They're doing the citywide collection of personal items. That's going to be publicized some more. They're looking for, again, what do we say, cleaning supplies, bleach, deodorant, shampoo, conditioner. And starting at noon, May 1st, they'll be driving around picking up items. So encourage folks to participate as you are able. And really just again, thanks to our city staff for making these meetings work. It's pretty remarkable to me that kind of like our meeting in the park, that they're able to pull off this significant change in technology and make it work. So I'll just say thanks to everybody for making it happen. And on that note, I will seek a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, if you could hold that, we do have one more public comment.
We will hold that.
Sorry, sir.
That's good.
Caller, you are on with the councils. Please state your name, and then when you finish with your comment, just state that you're finished.
Okay. This is Caleb Wachoska. Sorry for the late call. I tried to slide in after Gail Patterson and missed it. So the question is more about the city marinas. So I'm wondering, if the north side marina closed, done.
Sorry? You want to know about the marina?
Is the north side marina closed?
Yes. Yes, the north side marina is closed for the season because of the compromised electrical system at that marina. That is why we're talking about an emergency repair that would be a loan, and we're also seeking funding from the state to the tune of $1.5, $1.7 million is what we're estimating. As for the other three municipal marinas, the south side, Maritime Docks, and Black River Park, we're hoping that they can be open on May 15th, but of course, that's subject to water levels as well as the COVID-19 response.
Members of the council, we had a little bit of breaking up on that message. Staff attempted to respond. If the caller would like to contact me directly, I'll happily follow up and address any questions that he may have.
Sounds perfect. Thank you, Brian. Thanks, Kate, for tackling the question. So, sorry, who made the motion? Sorry, I missed it. To adjourn. Mr. Steve Schlock made motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Coach Campbell, I'll second.
All right. I thought you guys wanted to hang out all night. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I guess Travis will roll call us to the end.
Reeser?
Yes.
Schlott?
Yes.
Sleeper?
Yes.
Wilkins?
Yes.
Arnold?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes, and again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks council for all your work, and have a wonderful night, everybody.